live?
All right.
Good job.
Well, welcome everybody. I have been looking forward to this conversation. It's sort of cross-jurisdictional, cross kind of section of people from different places and spaces around our area on what is, I think, one of the biggest issues, challenges, and opportunities that we have in our area right now. It's not unique to the county, the city of Manassas, the city of Manassas Harbor, even to Virginia. This is an issue, this is a crisis that's happening across our nation, and we are not cracking despite how hard people are trying. First, I just want to sort of introduce ourselves and acknowledge a couple of folks. As you know, I'm Delegate Michelle Maldonado. I represent parts of the western end of Prince William County, that is Manassas, and the city of Manassas, like Bristow and Manassas, and city of Manassas. And the reason we're holding it here is because we haven't done much work here, even though we work all the time with the governing body. We love the board here. It's very engaged in the community. We thought it was great to start here, and also starting in 2024, hopefully I will also represent this area. I want to say at the outset that Mayor Rischel really wanted to be here tonight. She had a required meeting that she had to attend tonight, so she's unable to join us, but wanted to let you know that she is 100% in this conversation, believes in what we need to do here, and of course her door is always open. I would not be here but for Christy Mara, who is with Virginia Poverty Law Center. She is the Director of Housing Advocacy. Christy and I have worked on legislation together over the last 2 years. We were successful. Second year, which was this year, we put some legislation forward that got killed at the last minute, passed this year. So if anybody is a landlord of under units, you will know that July 1st, you started to have to give notice if you're going to receive rents. And it's 6 days before the return.
I would text you if I see the issue. Okay. Keep your phone.
Because we're finding a lot of people being told at the last minute, so, and also we are here because we have some amazing engaged council members of the governing board for City of Manassas Park who are hosting us tonight, Councilwoman Jessica Maya and Councilman Daryl Moore. So thank you for allowing us to be in this space. And so as you may have noticed, we were taking names down so we could introduce everybody. And this list is so long, and this made me really excited because it tells me that our community is engaged and we really want to get down and roll up our sleeves. So I thought, because we do have a good amount of time, what I thought we would do is just go around the room and everybody introduce yourself, who you're with, and we can get to why you're here if you want. Like, what is the one thing that you really want to make sure we cover tonight? And joining us now, Andrea, Supervisor Bailey.
Next to Tom. Awesome.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna just have us start with you. We'll work our way around the inner circle, then we'll go to Ms. Ramon and go to the outer circle and stay back. Okay, so would you like to introduce yourself, where you're hailing from, and what is the one thing you would like, if you would like to stand up? Sure.
I'm Josh McNeil, work for the City of Manassas Park. I'm the Finance Operations Manager. Just generally interested in the topic of affordable housing. I was in the office, I knew this event was happening, so there was no way I could miss it, so I'm here.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Francis. I'm with Civil Services of Northern Virginia. I am their practice co-chair for housing, so I oversee all of our cases that need to be charged.
So it needs to be charged?
Because this is
Right, yeah. I'm sorry about that question.
And we are by far the busiest section with legal services as far as helping people.
Does it needs to be charged? Right, there's a couple more. And let me see this one.
Thank you. And I just want to add one thing, Jonathan is so modest.
Are any of those stationed down to the charger?
Fighters for protecting our
Or on the charge?
Yeah, this one.
Trying to target acquired what was happening to the people there, and there were tireless months, years even. Is that accurate to say it was years?
14 months.
14 months. So that went in, that he gave his heart and soul and limited his talents and legal skills to make sure that they were victorious in that. And I want you to know this about him and some other people we have in the room that are working in these positions with great heart and compassion, that is supporting the skill and the talent and the expertise and the training they have, because we've got good people working on these issues. So, thank you, John.
I'm in Francisco, I'm the deputy staff here at Treviso's office. We had this event start for a while now. I was closest to the area, so I put my name forward to come out so they didn't have to drive along with me. But affordable housing is something that gets talked a lot about at the office.
Good morning, now. Good evening, I'm Supervisor Andrea Bailey from the Potomac District on the Board of County Supervisors in Prince William County. And I'm very excited about partnering with my colleagues here and particularly with Delegate Maldonado at this most important issue in our county that we've got to resolve together. And so when she asked me to be a part of this, with a resounding yes, I said yes. But know that I'm an advocate with the chair's office to make sure that we provide homes for those folks that want to permanently be here to live, work, and play, and have a good life in Prince William County, Manassas Park, and Manassas City. Thank you.
And I'm Tom Olsen, I'm Manassas City Council, and I'm delighted to be here, especially to see Manassas Park governing body's meeting spot and see the library. I had a chance to do a little walk around. You guys have really come a long way in just improving your government center here. So kudos for you for doing that. If you hadn't been here before, you can see what a great building it is. I'm looking forward to seeing if we can rival you, if not outdo you with our renovations. I'm counting on our city manager before he leaves to make sure he takes a look and make sure that we have really nice seats and everything.
Taking notes.
That's right.
Introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Christy Mera, and I am the Director of Housing Policy at Virginia Property Law Center. And I consider this woman, I call her part of our legislative housing dream team because she has been such a champion of great housing policy and great ideas. And I'm so happy to be partnering with Delegate Maldonado tonight. Can't wait to have a conversation and lead part of the conversation.
Good evening, my name is Tracy Blake. I'm from Dale City, and right now I'm here representing the Dale City Civic Association as a trustee on the board. And affordable housing is really, really important in Dale City because a lot of families right now are getting priced out. And I know that they're with us, we have apartments, but we don't have affordable single-family homes with yards for the kids to play and things like that. So I'm just happy to be here to add to the conversation. Thank you.
So I'm going to put that one on the track.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll introduce myself again. I'm Daryl Moore here at Manassas Park. Just want to welcome you all to our city and to our new city hall. The new library we have here as well. We appreciate your presence. It's an honor that we have this opportunity to work with Delegate Maldonado on such an important and critical issue in our region, affordable housing. And so I'm just really looking forward to getting and hearing from each and every one of you about what we can do to increase affordable housing for our constituents, our residents. And so I look forward to tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Again, Councilmember Lucia Maya, and I'm here as well, supporting the initiative, and I think that it's very important to remain affordable, especially in Manassas Park. So I'm here to learn, and here it is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Ramos. I'm with OmniRide, which is the transportation bus system.
First one, I think. If you're trying to.
I was trying to get her.
Hi, I'm Patty Coombs. I'm a planning commissioner at large under Chair Wheeler. I'm here also because I recognize the importance of affordable housing in our area. As a former teacher in Columbia, Maryland, I took advantage of it. I was able to live in an apartment for about 10 years, and then I was able to buy my own house for the first time, at the age of 31. So this is just so critical for, I feel, all of our public workers and the people who actually support our county. Our county works because of our teachers and our firefighters and our police officers, our trash collectors, all our government workers. And when we have over 1,000 teachers living in Stafford because they can't afford to live in the community where they work, that's an issue and a problem that just shouldn't exist. And so this is something I'm very passionate about, and I'll hopefully talk more about. I'm also on the Haymarket Regional Food Pantry Board of Directors, and I can tell you more about the rising Huntington House.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jill Norcross. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. So I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you, City of Manassas Park, for hosting us. It's a beautiful new city hall that you have. And I'm just really excited and encouraged about the energy in the room and the commitment from so many of you here. Thrilled to just be a part of it and trying to be able to share what I know to kind of help you further your goals and enact some sound policies and programs here to kind of move the ball forward, because we all know what the need is. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good evening. I'm Juan McPhail, Planning Commissioner Juan McPhail from the Potomac District. I work for Supervisor Bailey. I'm here because I'm motivated because I'm here to learn more about affordable housing. I'm going into my 4th year with the Planning Commission, so this facade that I've been playing for the last 3 years, that I'm new and I really don't know what's going on, no one's falling for that anymore. So, but all jokes aside, affordable housing is are applications that are going to be coming to the Planning Commission, to the board, and it's going to be a much more active program and activity that that we as planning commissioners, the board, Prince William County as a whole are going to have to address. As probably you all know, we don't have an affordable housing ordinance right now. We're in the process of drafting that and putting it forward. So again, I'm here, more for an educational opportunity than anything. And I'm really looking forward to the dialogue and learning more about affordable housing. Oh, just one more thing. No, I can't sing. I'm just loud and country.
Good evening, my name is Yvette Monet. I'm new to this area. I am the housing coordinator for the City of Manassas Park. And I'm just here to learn as well and share my experience in housing, which has been for the past 20 years in different areas of housing. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Smith. I don't have a fancy title like everybody else around the circle. I am a resident on the west side of Manassas Park, where we see firsthand a lot of the issues that result from overcrowding, and just hoping to learn from all the much smarter people here in the room than I that you guys have some solutions for us. Because I know we bought our house 3 years ago at the height of COVID, and we were lucky that the market was down now, but we couldn't buy it now. We just in 3 years, we would not be able to afford the house that we live in now, and I know a lot of other people are struggling, so here's some solutions.
Good evening, Saif Rahman. I'm managing partner of JR Real Estate. I'm here to maybe give you the other side of the coin as you talk through some of these things. But one of the claim to fame that I like to say is I think I have the first housing development in Prince William County that pledged affordable housing, 10% of the units, and was approved. And I think I am, Mark may correct me, I'm also the first to test the new comp plan to see if we get a density bump with pledging affordable units for another project that we have going through the works right now. So we'll see how that works. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Anita Rahman. I wear several hats. I co-vice chair for Democratic Agent.
Should be in the full view.
Fortunately, I am with the Mohammed and I go with the joint session.
He's our legislative aide. Phenomenal.
He's in that blind spot.
But I am the executive assistant for Francis Robin that carried a full term.
No.
Or who have children or who are pregnant, fleeing from domestic violence or whatever circumstance, we receive them at whatever term that they're in with their children as well. So at this
topic in discussion about affordable housing. We'd like to be involved in any topic involved with affordable housing because it directly impacts us. Since we receive over 10 calls, now it's been over 15 calls a day. And that's per day. So we definitely see how our community's been changing and becoming more inaccessible to people after the COVID provisions have been lifted. So I'm glad to be part of this discussion, and my boss will actually be joining us. She's just like,
I'm Mark McCaskill, and I'm a principal planner on the staff at Prince William County, and I try to get to as many regional and neighboring jurisdiction meetings like this as I can. So I actually saw an email come through the channels about we can have it.
My name is Seth Opokuboa. I'm a development manager with Wellington Development Partners, and we're an affordable housing developer active in the DMV region. I was born and raised in Prince William County, went to high school with Anika. Then I benefited from affordable housing growing up, and my mom still benefits from it now, so happy to be here.
Elijah Johnson, Devon County Executive of Prince William County. Like everyone here to learn and hear some of the issues that the community is experiencing as we develop our ordinance and coming up with different programs to solve these issues. To need to know what's going on in the community is very vital to us.
I'm Catherine Marine. I'm part of the Bull Run Unitarian Universalist congregation, and we are a part of Voice, and this affordable housing is an issue for all of us. And I guess I'm here to keep people apprised of the fact that you need to keep people my age off the road and provide affordable housing with transportation.
And I'm Charlie Grimes. I'm also with Bull Run Unitarian Universalist. We're a progressive congregation committed to social justice, part of the Voice community. And our Housing Task Force has spent the last 18 months digging into all of the jargon, all of the programs, in order to identify that there's a set of many solutions, no single solution. And we're hoping to hear how we're going to get real solutions beyond token projects. I mean, we'll even settle for some token projects to start.
We'll go back.
I'm Michelle, I'm just a resident of Manassas Park, so I was just wanting more information on what the affordable housing plan is and how that kind of benefits us, especially us with single moms.
And no one's just a resident neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm just a resident of Manassas.
Yeah, that's right.
Hello.
Good afternoon, my name is Miguel Castro. I'm from Manassas Park. I died yesterday. Victor Agustin. That's a comment. I engineering electronic non-construction, pero I work for work in a organization work. I don't know. I am here. Thank you.
I'm Mark Wolf. I live in the city of Manassas.
I'm Urban Baston. I live in Manassas Park. Also, I am a member of Mount Olive Baptist Church in Centerville. We have persons that live in these communities right here, and we are looking at how we might be able to assist.
Alan Butcher, I live in the city of Manassas.
Oh, sure. Keith Wayne, I work as part of staff here, making sure we're ready to host this wonderful forum. Added bonus, looking forward to listening to the conversation.
Hi everyone, my name is Idris O'Connor. I wear multiple different hats. I'm a candidate for the Board of Supervisors for the Coles District. But besides that, I lead a coalition, the chair for the Cooperative Council Ministries, and we work in advocacy for more affordable housing options for the residents facing homelessness. I'm also a DSS advisory board. So, I'm here.
Hello everyone, if you don't know who I am already, my name is Anja Sheik and I'm Delegate Michelle Maldonado. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Robert Maldonado. I'm member of the delegate.
You have one other person? Oh, do we? No. No, here. I was.
Yes, he did.
our resident cyclists, if you want to know how to get anywhere on a bicycle, Alan is your guy. He can tell you how to get anywhere, everywhere, all the time.
Well, this wasn't hard.
This wasn't a hard place, no. Well, thank you again. I love that we all got a chance to introduce ourselves. We don't usually do that in these kinds of meetings, and I really think that's important as we level the playing field, because some people said, I'm just so-and-so, or I'm just as, nobody's that. We are all sort of tackling with these same issues from different lenses and perspectives, so we need all of that. So before I turn it over to Christy, I just want to say how we're going to break up the conversation today. So this year, a little bit about me. So when I was younger, in my elementary school years, there were several years where my family and I fell on hard times, and we lived in a camping trailer. And people will say to me, oh, we lived in a mobile home too. And I say, nope, there's a difference. A mobile home for us at that period would have been luxurious. We were in a camping trailer, very small, to kind of hitch onto the back of your truck. And there were 4 of us that lived in that. And I have an understanding of what it's like to try and move out of, from underneath or at the poverty line to a home that is a solid facility, structure in the ground, from something that's on wheels or something that's mobile. And what I've seen over my lifetime is sort of inflation and prices rising and falling. And what alarms me in particular is this increasing gap between the people who can afford homes and the people who cannot. And whether that home is an apartment, a condo, a mobile home, a single family home, it is increasingly difficult. We have them in the middle. People are struggling, so we've got compression because people aren't able to move into apartments. People in apartments aren't able to move up. People in apartments aren't able to get their first single starter homes. People in their established homes aren't moving because they can't afford to move. Even if they can sell their house at a good price, it's not enough to really acquire something else. So we have a problem. So our minority leader in the House Democratic Caucus appointed me. For the first time, they established an affordable housing policy committee. And I was appointed to serve as chair in January. And we have been working really hard with Virginia Poverty Law Center and other advocates in Navajo and others around our area about how we can make changes that all of us actually feel on the ground. You know, it's one thing for people to say, we're doing all these things and we added money to this fund and this is in the budget, when we don't feel it on the ground. We don't understand why we're hearing these things working, but we're still struggling, or we don't know where to go or how to go. So tonight when we talk, Chris is going to take the first half, and she's going to focus on rental units, renters, tenants, and we're going to have some conversation. We really want to hear from you. I want you to ask questions. You see who's in the room, and there are lots of different things that are happening across the cities and the county that people may be able to bring a lens to, that may be happening over here, that over here we hadn't thought of, that we can learn from one another. And sharing your experiences too, and it's okay to share your frustrations. These are hard, complex things. I just ask that we all be respectful and listen and try to have an open mind, open ear, even if we know that we've been trying to do X and X has just not been working. You hear somebody come up and say, we should do more of X. So we'll just kind of keep it fluid. After we finish the conversation around tenants and renters, we're going to move to home ownership, because there are obstacles there, and I will help facilitate that part of the conversation. So it's very fluid. You can ask questions. We'll give a little brief overview in the beginning, and then we're going to open it up. So start thinking about your questions. We'll kind of tee some things up, and we'll go from there. And it's going to be an informal conversation. There's no presentations tonight. And so you can raise your hand at any point to ask a question, or to suggest something, or to offer an observation, or what have you. Sound good?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christy Mara.
Thank you,
to walk us through.
Dr. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for coming and sharing. And I know having a lot of great ideas in the introduction myself. There is a lot of expertise in this room, and I'm excited to hear from all of you. I want to sort of frame the renters issue from my perspective as the Director of Housing at the Poverty Law Center, as well as, I can't help letting it slip in that, you know, I'm a third-year legal aid attorney in Virginia, and so for us, you know, we represent folks who have been, and broadly, people who have been struggling for 30 years, not the same people, but we've seen this problem really cause so much heartache for the past 30 years. And so, in a way, as horrible as it is that the housing crisis has reached this level, I'm really pleased and excited that so many people are interested in finding solutions. So thank you. We have done a number, yes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm usually more than loud enough. Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Let me, I could tell you a lot of things that you probably already know, quite frankly, and I do hope that we'll have a conversation and people will ask questions. But I do want to share what we've heard lately, because this is the third community conversation that we have had around tenants' rights. One was in downtown Richmond, one was in Henrico County, and now here. And there were a couple of things that rose to the top in those conversations. And I'm going to name the three that come to mind that really were emphasized. One is just the rising cost of rent. You know, it's already been mentioned that rents have gone up approximately 21% in the past 2 years, which is, I think, unprecedented, at least in the past 30 years that I've been working on this issue. The second issue that we heard a lot about was the lack of rental units affordable and available for people with families. That so many, and I know you see it here, we see it in the city of Richmond, we've seen this explosion of new rental units going up. And they are primarily for single people who have roommates, couples who don't have children. And so with the difficulty, the increasing difficulty for folks who want to become home buyers to actually become home buyers because of those prices, we heard a lot of frustration from people about the fact that it seems as if in some areas these apartments are being built to draw people into the state instead of being built for the people who are already here. So that's another issue that we heard. And then at a different event, we heard a lot about the difficulty of accessing safe, affordable, desirable rental housing, particularly if you have faced an eviction. And so that's also something that we have heard about, that we're very aware of, and that we are talking to, community members and other organizations and experts about how do we solve that problem? How do we help people who have fallen on hard times or had some difficulty with their house, whether it's their housing or the fact that maybe they have something on their record that is a conviction for something, and that's blocking them from getting housing that they're going to be able to live in with their families. How do we help folks in that situation? So I am really interested in hearing your thoughts, not only on those three topics, but anything you see in your community here in Manassas Park that seems to be creating barriers for people to get and maintain the type of housing that they want. Because I think at the end of the day, what we all want is for people to have housing choice, right? For people to be able to find housing that they want to live in, that they can thrive in, and that they can afford. So I would love to hear from you all. I know Delegate Maldonado would too. Yes, sir. Should I pass the mic, sir?
So one of the things that we learned was that the JLARC study says just Prince William County alone is short 8,800 units. If you price them at $250,000 a pop, that's $2.2 billion that we need to attract into our community to meet that need. Have you examined the total of what is the demand and figured out what is the multiple stepping stones to get us to 8,800 units and even more counting all the other jurisdictions?
I have some thoughts, and I'm sure you do too.
Yes.
I can start just by throwing out one more statistics from that JLARC study for everyone, which is they estimated that there's a shortage of 200,000 affordable rental units statewide. I'm sorry?
That was my question.
Oh, okay. And what makes that extra scary is the fact that so many of our affordable units are funded with federal low-income housing tax credits that were obtained, and Jill's going to tell me if I get this wrong, that were obtained in the mid-'80s when that first became available. They've got a 30-year expiration date, and guess what? We're there. So, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to invite, reintroduce Jill Norcross, who is with Navaja. And there's been a lot of studies and research that they've done. And in comparison to surrounding jurisdictions, the county, the cities have not, in comparison, done and activated some of the programs that have been done that would address some of the issues that you're talking about that are contributing. And we know that we have, and I think Chrissy just mentioned it, we have approximately 200,000 affordable homes that we're sort of a shortage with. And just looking at a couple of things, over 300,000 low-income renters in Virginia are cost burdened. So, I mean, when you start adding up these numbers, it's incredible. And even though we're talking about affordable housing, we can't ignore that this is an intersectionality issue. It is about schools, it is about businesses that we can bring to our area, it is about affordable housing. So if we don't have affordable housing, we're not going to be able to attract businesses, we're not going to be able to attract professionals to come here, and if we don't have the housing, a lot of that across our areas are used to fund our schools. So this is all very tied and connected together. So I was wondering if I could impose upon Jill to kind of say a few words about some of the things that our area could benefit from looking at, even if it's an example of something from a neighboring jurisdiction or some things that we found in other places, if I could. Yeah.
Thank you so much again. I'll just stand here, I guess. So thanks for offering, I guess, just to lay a little bit more groundwork for everyone. You know, we have a shortage of housing supply in the region, in the state. So we're not just talking about affordable housing, but that obviously puts the pressure on, after the crash of 2008, our building permits. You can track building permits. We never achieved that level of building that we had going on in the early 2000s to meet the demand, and we're still not there yet. So in the DC metro region, which is what I track and look at, we're short. We need to create additional 25,000 units. That's DC, Maryland, and Virginia across the board. And our Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments have done a lot of research with Urban Institute and identified that 75% of those have to be affordable to low and moderate incomes families, because that's where the jobs are. That's where we see the job growth. That's where we see the need at the lower income service workers. We all know it. We're all living it, but just wanted to kind of set that stage. Navaja has been around for 18 years, and we're an organization that has really worked with our local government partners to promote sound housing policy and resources. And every community, county has started somewhere. So I don't want this to be critical of this area at all, but you're really facing these severe shortages. And that's why I think it's exciting what Prince William County is doing, getting ready to create an affordable dwelling unit ordinance. And so that's going to be, when you have developers like SAFE come in, that proportion of their market rate housing is deemed to be affordable. We also have developers like Seth, who's in the room, who create affordable housing developments that are created by the low-income housing tax credit. So those are two primary ways of getting more rental units in our communities. Prince William County, we're talking to the city of Manassas as well, and Manassas Park, to kind of make sure that they have the tools and resources that help do it. Those funds that can be part of your local tax credit, local tax dollars, can often serve as leverage and additional subsidy to create more units and attract those federal investments. So it's truly an investment in infrastructure. You can look at it if communities are putting money, their local dollars, toward the creation of these additional units. And I think that's what we're here to kind of describe. And we've had a lot of great success in other jurisdictions. The city of Alexandria has decided to to commit 1% of their meals tax goes directly to affordable housing. So that's a sustained source that every year the community knows that money's going to go to fund affordable housing. So that's kind of a unique program, the only one of its kind in our region. Fairfax has affordable dwelling unit ordinance, as well as Loudoun County, to ensure that we're getting those units, both rental and for sale. And we'll talk about homeownership next, but those are just some of the policies. I can go on, but just thought I'd share. So thank you.
Thanks, Jill. And I wanted to, Jill did a great job of talking about some of the local subsidies, if you will, or, the local funds that are, or programs that are put into developing the affordable units that we so desperately need. And we know there are also things at the federal level. And I want to mention two things that we are working on getting into the next budget. And we've been working on them for quite some time. And one is an increase to the amount that of state funds that go into the Virginia Housing Trust Fund. So we have seen a growth of that since I started working on this issue 12, 13, 14 years ago, a tremendous growth, and we're very grateful for that. But we also know that there is a huge need. There's a huge need to increase the supply of affordable housing, and we need to not only have those low-income housing tax credits and the local initiatives like the ones Jill mentioned, but that still leaves gaps. And so one of the solutions, sort of going back to your question, sir, I think is advocacy with our state, all of our state legislators, to really increase that amount of funding. Really doubling it would be a great start, we think. And then one thing that I want to point out, and this, I think sometimes, I won't say it gets lost, but it's the most, I think, difficult part of the conversation about affordable rental housing, and that is that, especially in Northern Virginia and getting to be that way in Richmond, people who are, working not just minimum wage jobs, but teachers, nurses, many professionals are not able to live where they work, and they need help. And when we look at things that are designed to help that group, that's great, but we're not necessarily then looking at things that will also help someone who is, maybe working as a groundskeeper, or working as a nurse's assistant, or working as a wait staff somewhere, who we need and who also should be able to have an opportunity, in my opinion, to live in the community in which they work. And so that, that is, no matter what we do, I think, to increase the supply of affordable housing, we have to keep thinking about how to help people with those lower wages access even that affordable housing. And that normally means an individual subsidy, like a rental voucher, which we are also strongly advocating for. So I just wanted to point those few things out. And do we want to talk about more? Do we want to talk more about rental housing, or segue into?
Maybe a little bit more, because there's a question.
Great.
Thank you graciously.
Okay.
Good evening, happy sunshine, everyone. When you're talking about the Affordable Housing Act, are we also including a homeless population that is growing increasingly? And also, are we talking about, we keep raising what the qualifications and the income is. I think it's now $33,000, even to try to get to apartment rich. Who mandates that, and how are we looking at helping those when you keep raising what the minimum standards of just even getting into rent? And who mandates the rental cost? $2,500 to rent an apartment. You can't have food, shelter, and we become more with our homeless population.
Yeah, those are great points and really great questions. And so many of our rents are set in accordance with the median income in the area. And so that's a good and a bad thing, right? I mean, as the income goes up, then the affordability kind of goes down, right? Really, because there are folks who don't meet the, can't afford it, flat out. At the same time, there are people who are just slightly above the cutoff to get the assistance. And I think those are some of the people you're talking about as well. And then for our community members and our neighbors who are going through a time where they don't have any access to housing, that's when we, in my opinion, need to start thinking about solutions for people who are earning less than 50% of the area median income, right? And so those are some of the folks I talked about before, earning lower wages, but also people who have lost their jobs and lost their homes and need to get back on their feet, which is really hard to do if your feet don't have somewhere to sleep at night, right? Yes.
Sorry. I wasn't sure if you were finished.
Yes.
Okay. Hello again. So I guess the question I wanted to ask before, I actually got to attend the Haymarket Town Hall for High Point, and there was a lot of great points that were made, concerns about school density and overpopulation of that, and congestion on the roads for traffic, and also no means of public transportation or the affordable housing being built in areas that are not easily accessible for people who are in low-income housing, and even for first responders to respond and get to that area. I think what I've been observing recently is that a lot of counties and districts have been playing hot potato with affordable housing plans and projects. It's getting pushed back, and I think constituents want real tangible commitment from their board members and their representatives, even across districts, especially with the rezoning now. So my questions, well, I have two questions. The discussion that we were having at the Haymarket Town Hall is that the affordable housing would qualify people who make 40 to 80% area median income, right? Correct. Which I don't think is affordable at all, especially within that area. And it's dependent on the area that you're building that dwelling at. So are there any provisions? I just learned about the ordinance and the plans to pursue that, but are there any provisions to mitigate these issues like the overpopulation and the density rising in schools and the congestions? I mean, if you were to come out with this ordinance, there's obviously going to be a lot of pushback, and yeah, that's my question.
That's a great question.
So I'm going to ask, we've got mics strategically placed around the room. So if any of y'all are going to ask a question, I ask you to grab a mic, and we're going to keep this one up here. I love the question, and now we're getting down to the nitty gritty, right? Because these are some of the challenges with how do we grow? How do we put safe, affordable, healthy roofs over people's heads while still maintaining the architecture, the structure of community. And I'm looking over here. I wanted to introduce Laszlo Palka, who is our city manager here in Manassas Park. And I'm going to lean on him in a second to provide some insights, because I just attended one of his economic development presentations, and you had some insights around impact on traffic and school and all of those things. So I'm going to come to you in just a moment, but since you just arrived, I'm going to give you a few minutes to prepare. But I also want to turn over here to Supervisor Bailey with some of the things that are happening and how we can alleviate those. And if you would like to add anything. So we've got the county and we've got the city there in the park, talking about those things. And then I want to come to you, Ramon, safe to see from your perspective how we might mitigate those, or what you're seeing as part of that equation. So I'm going to pass it over to Supervisor Bailey first, and then we can give it to Councilman Ossina.
Thank you so much, my delegate. Thank you for your question. And again, good evening, and excuse my tardiness, but I am here. That was an excellent question. And so let me just say, in respect to, I want to start with a quick story, then I'm going to go into answering your question. The beauty of her presentation, I'm sorry, your name, Christy. Christy's presentation is so important right now in our times. And when I did my introduction, people really do want to live here. They want to live in Prince William County. And so as your representative, we've got to figure it out. And we got to figure it out for the entire county, not just, that includes Manassas Park and city, as a combined effort. It is our jobs when we have the subject matter experts to tell us what the game plan is. It's our jobs when we're sitting down with the developers and the builders to talk about our county and the direction that we're going into, and to talk to them about investing in our county. That's been an opportunity for us even before COVID. And so when with the projects that, I can only speak for myself, I know my colleagues feel the same way, most of them. The projects that I'm working on now, I have the hard conversations about what are you going to do in terms of providing an AMI that can really be affordable for people that really want to live here. And what about our overcrowded schools? What about not just the overcrowded schools, but what about the schools that need to be built for the people that want to move here? And so those kinds of conversations, to give you some reassurance and to give the audience some reassurance, those are the kinds of conversations that are being held now. But I think there's an opportunity also for us to have more of these kinds of audiences so we can really understand, as your representatives, what the needs are when we are crafting, when we're talking to our staff about the rezonings and when we're talking about the permits and all of that. It's very important that we truly understand what the needs are. If COVID has not taught us anything, it has taught us that there is really a need for housing and there is food insecurity here in our county. And so all of those kind of things have to be poured into when we're talking to developers and builders. I think the ordinance is absolutely an answer. It absolutely, it's overdue. But what the ordinance will do is to bring us focused on how do we serve an organization like Carried Full Term? How do we serve the renters? You know, how do we serve those students that have graduated from college and want to come back on their first job here? How do we do that? And those are the kind of things that in the past we really weren't focused on before, but we are now. We are now. One of the things that I've learned from my friend Safe here is to really incorporate, and I can't say any different than this, really incorporate the entire county. That's something that I think is a growing thing for us. There have been discussions about, well, you know, you want density, put it on the east side. You know, that's not the answer either. You know, so those kinds of in-depth conversations are being held. But the other thing is we must, and this is just a saying for me, for the developers and the builders, I love you, Safe, you got to pay to play. So what I mean by that is if this county is important to you to come and build, it has to be important to you to understand the citizens that live here. And so to answer that question, those are the messages that are, and the conversations that are being held now. Now, the other thing, the last thing I'll say, and then I'll sit down, is we are also being trained as representatives, not as subject matter experts, because there are some here in the audience. We're being trained to when we're speaking, to talk about things, not just housing, but to talk about mobility. So if you live on the western corridor in an apartment, how do you get to the eastern corridor to work or to school? That's very important. Or, you know, if you don't want to drive, you know, how do you ride your bike, Alan, in the middle of the county to get to a class at GMU or to get to your job? All of those kind of things that we probably were not focused on before, we are now. But the last piece that I want to say, and it's all encompassing, is incorporating the input from citizens as well and educating you. Okay, we heard you. Here's what we've done. Bring it back to you and say, we've done this and expect that. And I know that sounds very basic, but it is very basic to me when you're serving people. And so I hope that answered your question. I want to assure you that those kinds of conversations are being held. And audiences like this, thank you, my delegate, for bringing us forward to just have these kind of conversations. It teaches us how to be better representatives to you. Thank you.
Could you share for a moment for people who are here from the county or are interested in talking with anybody from the county about this issue, where they would go?
Oh, of course I can. Well, first of all, let me just say this. We do have a housing department in the county, and you can find that on pwc.gov. That's the first thing. And our wonderful housing director is Joni Luckett. Am I saying, huh? Duckett. I always call her Luckett. Duckett, who is the guru in Elijah's department, and teaching all of us about housing. But there's a department. There's an opportunity for us to grow that department. Was having a conversation with county exec about that today in terms of the direction that we're going and what does that look like in terms of hiring staff to support our endeavors. That's very key. We don't have the staff right now. And so that's very key. Wouldn't you say, Jill? It's very key. And so we're going to work on that to make sure that that comes about. The other thing is, with your representatives, I would encourage you to find out, if you live in the county, who your county supervisor is, to have those discussions. And I would encourage you to have those discussions rapidly. I hope that answered the question. Yes, thank you. But those, making the appointments, like before we leave here, I'm going to get on Jill's calendar because we said we're going to do that last time, because it's important that, because we're on regional boards that we sit on. I sit on the COG board, and I see Jill's work all the time, and she's there all the time. But the information and the data that we get from the Council of Government, it pours into how we actually execute building affordable housing. It pours into how we actually execute transportation. And it's not just, it can't be anymore a check the box to sit on the board to put on the resume. It's got to be actionable. And it's got, and the last thing I want to say is funding. What did you just say? Somebody said something about the federal and the state funding. Was that you? Yeah, that trust fund thing. Yes. We are building an affordable housing trust fund. So a little joke, said to the county exec when he first came on board and he saw my budget presentation to him, I want $35 million in affordable housing trust. And he went, what? Today? This budget cycle? No, but we're going to work on it. Because that's really important when you talk about how do we support a renter that it's not able to handle the rent, or a mom that's about to have a baby as a single parent. I'm a single parent kid. You know, how do we help them with that until they get up on their feet? And so that's real important that we understand the funding in that regard. It's a lot of federal grants that we just don't apply for, those discussions are being held as well. Thank you.
I notice we are halfway through of the hour, so I just want to interject a few things about home ownership, and we'll continue the conversation because it all bleeds together on the continuum of affordable housing, which someone, when I was talking to someone in the neighboring community, and they said it's not just about affordable housing, it's about affordable living. It is the whole 360 experience of being in our communities and our neighborhoods. So when we think about that, we mentioned earlier, we're seeing all these challenges we're having in the rental space. And as you know, anybody who's been in the rental space trying to purchase a home and feeling like you have to stay in the rental space because there's no option for you that's affordable, that's reasonable, or not being able to move from where you are because you can't afford something else. And what we know is that there's been a number of studies that have come out to suggest. We even had a JLARC study, which is a joint commission, our housing commission. We've had a number of studies come out with recommendations. And these recommendations have asked us to establish housing stability funds, housing trust funds. So the difference is, housing stability funds can be with people who are in emergency or crisis situations, and there's a stability fund. The housing trust fund is about really being able to kind of get into the homes, get into the rental units, all those things that help with access, and the other one helps you stay there. So we need both, and we need more money. We just signed the budget yesterday. We were all down in Richmond yesterday. We did sign a budget, and there is some more money coming into the housing and related sort of wraparound services programs, and we're all across the General Assembly, both houses, both parties, very happy about that. But what we see, and I've shared this kind of this kind of cycle. Imagine this. So people in Alexandria and Arlington are like, holy cow, or Fairfax. These prices are bananas. It's so expensive here. We've got to move. Prince William County looks good. So Prince William County folks are saying, oh my gosh, what's happening to these prices? We can't afford this anymore. Stafford looks good. And you get this southward kind of travel, migration. And westward. Thank you. So what's happening is that a lot of the complexion, not in a literal sense, but the makeup of our communities are shifting, because I was just talking to someone the other day who said the people who we've been here for so long, and it's getting harder and harder for us to stay. Those of us who have been here since the beginning, it is harder and harder for us to stay, even if they are a homeowner. So I think that, when we talk about how do we make things affordable, accessible is part of it. And there is a need to create these living hubs, these communities that have transportation nearby, that have the opportunity to get to good employment, that have a way to sort of grow their value without making them go into the hole financially. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes into that. And so housing trust funds, housing stability funds, and a lot of times what we hear across our area, particularly with single-family homes, is that that's the focus. Everybody wants single-family homes. It is one way to do it, but it is not the only way. And not everything is an apartment building being asked to be built next to your single-family home. It could be those patio homes. It could be townhomes. There are a number of ways to increase density that doesn't look like a big black box on your street. And so we have a lot of not in my backyard, the NIMBYs, and we have a lot of YIMBYs, yes in my backyard. And we've got to balance and provide explanations and clarity and programs that work. And we need it in the rental space and the homeownership space. Now, having been in this for the time that I have, I will also say that it is difficult because our population, not only in this area, but around the nation, is rising, even though people also are choosing not to have more children at the same time. It's very interesting what's happening right now with our population. So people are clustering in different areas around Virginia and the nation. And so how do we accommodate that? And Virginia is such an amazing commonwealth. We have so much to offer. But if we don't get the housing situation straight, we will not be able to attract businesses. We will not be able to keep up with what our schools and education systems need, and we'll not be able to make sure we can attract people to come live here. So I just want to interject that as we talk about it, and we're going to still hear from the folks from Manassas Park, and you might want to say something too, Ms. Yvette, about what your experience is in the affordable housing space for the park and others. Did you have a question, sir? Do you want to ask? Can somebody give him a mic?
Thank you. Bueno, I thinking that the number of housing available is very low. Maybe the problem is simply
Speaker up above it.
far away.
Yes.
Maybe the problem is only one, it's the number of housing available for the people. I see that the construction is very difficult. It's housing of cartoon one. The problem is what I say right now. The housing, the cartoon, is paper, is super cheap. The time for construction apartment is too long the time. Why not use
Prefabricated, prefab.
Massive.
Mm-hmm.
You put the crane in the middle, you construction one building here, you construction another building here. And when you finish, you move the rear.
Yes.
This is common in many countries. copy what the people do. The people are very. This construction method is super fast, it's super simple. You have the construction plan for prefabricated in the yard, on the back, out of the construction. You prepare the bathroom, you prepare the living room, you prepare the kitchen. When you begin to construction the building, 20 floor, no 3, 4, no. 20 floor, the house is full. It's the building. There, you see the apartment in Ukraine and other countries, it's like a case or shoes, a square. In every square lives one family, or one person, or whatever. The time that it's available the unit is 200 years. It's not 20 years, nothing, because it's concrete. It's solid concrete. You cannot put the knife in the wall or put the when you get the hammer, you see the hammer go back because it's concrete. It's concrete. So the unit can use it for this family, and after that you can use it in another family. Or if the guy moves to another place, the apartment is available for other people. If the cost go down, too much, go down. Yes, it's usually, yes, I know. There is something that I like to introduce in the United States. I am no construction engineer, I know nothing about that, but I see.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and absolutely, Christy has a good point. Yes, we're gonna come to him for a second, but I just want to say that that's a really good point. I think a lot of times, I will tell you, serving in the General Assembly, the one thing we are told not to do: don't go to the General Assembly and say, you know what, in California they're doing X, or in New York they're doing Y. Nobody wants to hear that, right? However, I really believe that there are some amazing examples that are happening inside our country and outside of our country that would be useful for us to consider as ways to tackle this problem and many other problems. I mean, I look at the Netherlands all the time about how they handle their roads and what the material they use for their roads, and how they have amazing bike lanes and bike and pedestrian traffic. We don't think about those things. Now, I know culturally our country is a little different, but I think there are some amazing things that we can do. And we do see places outside of our country and even in the Caribbean where lots of homes are made out of cement. And we know how that those work. They're durable. It doesn't often look like how our homes look like here traditionally in this country, but that's also something to consider. So I want to just pass it to you quickly, and then I want to give the other folks. Oh, sorry. I want Christy to talk about an example. Then we'll go to you, and then we'll finish up with the park and the city about what they're doing as well.
Thank you, Delegate. And sir, as I was listening to your comment, I thought about my friends at a nonprofit that I'm sure Jill knows that's based in Richmond called Project Homes. And what they are doing is they are working on mobile homes, manufactured homes, which are, they're working on a product that is longer lasting. And they've created this product, and it is much more affordable than a lot of the homes that we're talking about now. And it's something that can be either constructed on site, as you're suggesting, and they're smaller homes on smaller lots. Now, these mobile homes are just single-family homes, but you're right. There's also the option of, not in the mobile home space, but in other spaces, to construct things that will last, that are taller. But all of these are smaller units, let's say 1,000 square feet instead of 3,000 or 4,000 square feet, that will last. And I just want to say one more thing on the mobile homes. I was talking to somebody at the Pew Charitable Trust about this, and he said, if you could just get small lot sizes and put a mobile home on each lot and have that mobile home, have it be part of a subdivision, you could take what now might house, 50 families and triple that by just having more efficiency in the size of the home and the lot that it's placed on. So those are just a couple of things.
Thank you. And all these ideas that we have the underlying thing we always have to think about too is like, how do we want our communities to look? What does that look like, and what are people accustomed to having their neighborhood look like, their homes look like? And so there's a balancing when we're considering new ways. It's also looking at what is it people are accustomed to and desire. So I want to give you a few moments before we turn it to the cities.
Thank you. So there's a fundamental issue here, and I think Christy and Jill mentioned it right at the beginning. We have a supply crisis. That supply crisis is a direct result of market conditions, of artificial constraint that were done by jurisdictions. And that's the reality. The jurisdictions around our country have artificially constrained supply for the last 20 to 30 years and has led to the crisis that we're in today. The only way out of this crisis right now is to fix the supply issue. The only way to fix the supply issue is to get out of the way of getting that supply there. The problem right now is how long does anyone know how long it takes to actually, from concept to the first home in the ground, how long it takes on average in this area? It's 4 to 5 years from concept. And I'll give you an example. On Sudley Road, my project, which I mentioned, was approved in December of 2021. The permits are not yet complete for that project. The roads haven't even started yet. And here we are, we're almost in December of 2023. And the reality is, in order for us to meet all the regulations, and I'm not advocating for getting rid of regulations, don't misunderstand. I think we should, as developers, be responsible developers, stormwater management, in terms of trees, in terms of building good communities. But the problem is that it takes so long to get through the process that every month it adds on to the cost of that house. To give you an example from a developer standpoint, every month a project is delayed for me is about $15,000 to $20,000 in overhead on that project. That's between the bank costs, that's between my employees, that's between the engineering. So just think about that. If you're taking an average of 18 months to get that project through, then you're talking about that overhead. The engineering costs right now, because of all the difficult regulations that we have to meet, to go through it. Right now, a typical rezoning project in Prince William County will cost you anywhere between $750,000 and $1 million in engineering, whether it's 10 homes, whether it's 20 homes, whether it's 300 homes. So again, when you start talking about affordability, the way we need to really resolve this issue is incentivize jurisdictions to really figure out a way to increase or decrease the amount of time for that entitlement process so you get more homes to market. If you allow that to happen, you will see, the industry will figure out a way to ramp up, the supply. The second issue here, and I'm glad we have some of our elected officials. Our elected officials are elected for a purpose. We are not a direct democracy. We are a representative democracy. You are elected to represent your constituents. The problem that has happened in land use is now we have become this, almost like a direct democracy where the representative no longer can see the bigger picture and tell the community, hey, I think this is a good project. There are very few representatives that do that. You see one of them sitting right here. But very few representatives are willing to actually say to a community, okay, I understand you don't want this road connection. I understand you may see 20, 30, 40 more cars. But if we don't do that, you're going to have to go out onto a main road so you can go visit your neighbors. And that's another major issue that we have right now when we're dealing with land use. But I take it back to, again, supply. My solution, if I was to give you a solution from the House of Delegates, is find a way to incentivize jurisdictions. I have, Elijah's sitting here, and I see some of the Manassas Park folks. Let me ask you a question. If you had $100 million on the table, and you were told that you have to get your entitlements done in 6 months, would you leave that $100 million on the table? I guarantee you wouldn't. If the House of Delegates puts a fund of statewide and tells jurisdictions, if you finish your entitlements in 6 months' time, we will release $10 million of matching infrastructure funds, I guarantee you those jurisdictions are going to get out of the way and get those entitlements done.
Yes, hold on one second.
First of all, I appreciate your comments and your discussion. But can you tell me, you're building a project that has 10% set aside, inclusionary low-income housing. How are you doing that? I mean, I'm being told by developers and by others that we can only do 5%. 5% is too much. We can only do 5%.
We can do 10%.
We're talking 10. As a developer, tell us how that works. Do you need incentives for density?
Yeah.
What can we do to make that happen?
So last year, I was the president of the Northern Virginia Building Industry Association Prince William chapter. And, I also happen to be, as another hat, I sit on the Voice strategy team. So affordable housing is near and dear to my heart. I come from a family of 6. My parents were immigrants. My father could not rent a house because no one would rent a house to a family of 6 kids. It was a real struggle every time. One time, my parents' house burned, and essentially they could not find a house to rent. So we had to, all together, the kids, all of us were working at the time, pool our family funds to buy my parents' first house. But here's the thing. I got industry together last year, and I asked, what can we do as industry? And industry can live with 10%. Now, the caveat to that is it's got to be over 80% for sale product. You cannot produce a for sale affordable dwelling unit that is under 80% AMI. It's just not possible without losing significant money to the developer on doing so. I see Christy is confused. Okay, because I'll tell you how I did it on my Lomond Village project, which is coming up on the Sudley corridor, is essentially I agreed with the builder that I would give him those units for free. So essentially what happens is the developer, if I have enough density to make the project numbers work, then I can tell the builder, okay, I will give you those units. So right now when I'm buying land from owners, I already have in my contract provisions that I can't pay you for those affordable units, dear landowner, because I'm not going to be paid for those units from the builder. The builder can build them, but the builder has to get the land for free so he can make the numbers work. Because remember, each of those units is still going to cost about $40,000 in land development, $40,000 to $70,000 in land development costs. And then they have to build the house at call it an $80 to $100 a square foot. So if you've got a 1,500 square foot house, by the time you get to the cost of that actual building, your cost is $200,000 plus, right? So you need to sell that house at 80%. You need to be selling it around $250,000 essentially. So what was that? Yeah.
The reason I looked confused, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, is that we are contemplating and working on trying to get funding for a down payment assistance program that would really be targeted at folks who were earning incomes below 60% area median income. And I hear you saying that you can't build something that's affordable for that group. Does the subsidy change that?
No.
Can you help me?
At current interest rates, so if you run the numbers, at current interest rates, even folks at 80% AMI would very hardly be qualified for a $300,000 house because of the way that the interest rates are right now, right? Because what the difference between rental product and for sale product, on a rental product basis, the bank is looking at your 30% or 33% debt to income ratio. Even if you go to 40% and push it, right? Your debt to income ratio on a for sale product is different because you've got to pay home expenses, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay insurance. Whereas on a rental basis, it's a much different calculation number.
Yeah, so if you coupled that down payment assistance with a low interest mortgage from something like Habitat, then it works.
Yes,
Okay,
it will.
thank you.
Then you could
That's the
probably
plan.
qualify someone. But again, it's just a matter of what it costs to get to that building and the timeline I just mentioned. Like it's 4 years to base paving. That's typical average timelines right now.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm mindful of the time and Saif, you raised something I just wanted to clarify for people. A lot of times I will be speaking with folks from the community and they'll tell me that they want something done. And it's actually something that sits at the local level that I don't actually have authority to require it be done. And these ordinances are one of them. That's why I think Saif is talking about sort of carrot versus stick. So if we can use incentives, we can use resources to help inspire and motivate the kind of development that is within the purview and the decision-making of the localities, how they want their locality to be developed. They're closer to everybody, but versus the state or the federal level. So recognizing that, which is also why I think Supervisor Bailey talked about making sure you're talking to your city council members, your board of county supervisors, your city managers, all of those things, because that's where the decision-making happens. So before we run out of time, I know we could go on this for a bit. I really want to give time for the cities to talk about some of the things that are happening in your areas around affordable housing. So we'll go to you, Tom, and then we'll.
All right. Well, thank you very much. First of all, I do want, we heard a little bit about mobility as being part of this challenge along the way. And I want to point out and remind people we have someone from OmniRide. OmniRide is doing amazing things. Saturday, Sunday, for instance, Manassas Park. It's free to travel. I mean, there are a whole bunch of other things going on, and I hope we have a chance to learn a little bit more before everyone has to leave, because
And my development is walking distance to the OmniRide lot on back of Sudley Road.
there you go. So on that sort of thing. The nice thing about being at this is that I'm not alone. I have a fellow city councilor. He was very modest here, Mark Wolf, and we also have our city manager here. So if you've got questions later on, you want to say, who do I need to talk to in the city? That's the person to talk to right over there, because he knows all the right people to get the word to here. I introduce Mark also because we serve on council, and we clearly have a lot of things in common, but we also have different perspectives along the way. I for the last 23 years, live in Manassas in a very low-income neighborhood. You've heard of Georgetown South? That's where I live. So my perspective is shaped every day by what I see and experience in that neighborhood. Real quickly, who has not been in the city of Manassas? Who's never set foot in the city of Manassas? All right, great. So you know that Manassas is nothing like in terms of land size and what have you as Prince William County. We don't have large stretches of land that hasn't been developed. So what we do, or our challenges, are very limited in terms of how much land we have available to do certain things along the way here. But since I got elected 3 years ago, council has gradually been tackling this issue, and we've been learning more. And very recently, for instance, we have decided to reactivate our housing trust organization. We set aside $2 million. That's nothing like the county, but on the other hand, for us, $2 million is a big chunk of money to be able to set aside on that. And right now we've got staff who's learning how to make effective use of that housing trust so that we can then appropriately use that for the benefit of our citizens here. We have also, through our planning commission and city council this spring, adopted some zoning amendments that first define for the first time for us what affordable housing is. It's 80%, by the way. That's the definition we use there. But secondly, we also adopted some zoning amendments that encourage cottage court development, as well as some work-live type development along the way here, because what we were getting are single-family homes and townhomes for the most part. And we knew we needed to change that up, especially if we were going to live up to our comprehensive plan, which sets very lofty goals, but believe it or not, council in Manassas very much wants to try to work toward those along the way. I'll stop for this moment and ask my compatriot over here if he'd like to add anything else from his perspective.
Really trying not to say anything today.
We're recording, Mark, we're recording. That's why we're trying to get on that.
What I would point out, and I sit with Andre on the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Board, and let me give, housing is not a local issue. it is a regional issue. It's a national issue. You will not solve housing issues in Manassas or Manassas Park because we are a part of the larger marketplace. So let me give you some definitions if you're not aware of this. According to COG, by 2050, there'll be an extra 400,000 households living in Northern Virginia. So whatever shortfall you have now, you need to add 400,000 to that and build that. Where are you going to put 400,000 homes? That's where you start. He is exactly right. This is a supply and demand issue. You cannot repeal the laws of supply and demand. Everything else is frankly window dressing from my perspective. You've got to start at the macro levels, and that is land use. If you do not solve land use, you do not get anywhere, and you will kill the economy and you will destroy the quality of life in our community. The other piece, and getting back to what Andrea said, is it is a balancing act. You want more homes, you're going to have more density. You're going to have more kids in schools. That's more taxes. I will take issue with something that was said earlier. No one builds houses, no one at a local government level supports building houses for revenue purposes. Housing, residential housing is a tax negative for any locality. Elijah's over there nodding his head. He knows it. Why Richmond is building a bunch of small one-bedroom units is they do not want school children in their schools, so they have to pay the taxes because they have to pay an outshared portion of those taxes because of the lack of funding from the state. That's the cold, hard political reality that I deal with every day. And I will guarantee you the people in Richmond deal with the same thing. So all these things intertwine, which is nice to say, an easy way to say, there ain't no easy answers here, folks. And Habitat and all the organizations that are working on the issue are great and are appreciated, but you will not solve the problem. It's a macro level solution that has to be done or we don't fix this at all.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if you'd like to say a few words, you and then Laszlo, or whichever. Yeah, I think both of you would be great to. Nope. Yeah.
All right, well, good evening. Sorry for my tardiness as well. I had some dad responsibilities. Thank you so much for hosting this. I'm lucky to have two council members here, especially who are very pro-affordable housing, because I believe in the issue very much. And I know they're trying to push me even farther than sometimes I think the market can go sometimes, to your point, but I get why they do so. And so just to go over a little bit of what we're doing, we have our housing coordinator here, Yvette. We brought her on during COVID using the federal funds that we received. To start off first with looking at how to utilize ARPA funding to help those who are renters who are struggling to stay or stay in their homes, for homeowners as well, connecting them to county resources, connecting them to state resources. That was mission one. That's kind of gone away now as we moved post-pandemic. The second phase right now, we just received a grant from the state to do an affordable housing study for our city as well. So we're going to be evaluating essentially the market makeup, right? Because I do agree with you. It's a supply issue. I tell the governing body, I tell everyone at the town hall, it's a supply and demand issue. I came from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and they never dealt with this supply issue, and they got burned. And everyone that I know there has had to move out because they can't afford to live there anymore. So I don't want that to happen in this region. And you're absolutely right. It's a regional solution, but we can do our part as well in each jurisdiction, and we are definitely doing that here in Manassas Park. So that's going to be the next step, is define what that means, affordability. For us, we're going to try to go below 80% as well in the two developments that we talked about at the town hall. That's our goal. So what we do in our city, so housing in our city actually is a net positive. So we've run the math depending on which housing, right? Apartments that we've evaluated in certain type of 2/2s have actually been profitable for the city. Our school enrollments have been declining. So we're actually trying to keep up because we're heavily dependent on the state for our school enrollment. I talked about kind of macro level birth rates collapsing across the country. My generation and younger generation, Gen Z, are not having as many kids as before. So in the future, this is an opportunity, right? But the larger issue here, so we're focused on downtown development, more net positive residential development here that brings positive fiscal impacts to the city, creates more density here right next to our VRE station as well. Omni Ride, all those public transportation components. That's what we're trying to do, is build density here. But the other thing we're trying to do is not just density, because you brought this up earlier, right? With density comes cost. How do you deal with those costs? We have to be pro-economic development as well. And you have to utilize, so when we come up with developments here, we don't just say, hey, we're going to do this development to do developments. We actually set out public policy goals first. What is the goal that this development is trying to achieve from a housing standpoint, from supporting economic development standpoint as well, and how are we going to invest that money in our infrastructure, in our schools? We lay that out before we go out to developers and engage with them, and developers become a tool for us, not that you're a tool, but an instrument, yeah. They become an instrument to help us out with our public policy goals, and that's how we've defined all of our developments that we've done over the last few years, and it's been tremendously successful in helping us get out of our fiscal distress position that we were in 6 years ago with the state trying to intervene in our affairs. It's been a big part in turning around our economy as well, and so now we're moving in that direction to accomplish more affordable housing as the next phase. We weren't able to do that here. We're doing a lot of redevelopment of industrial areas. The problem is purchase price as well, and you know this as well. When you're buying more expensive land and you're doing that development, the affordable ratios initially, no one wanted to come to Manassas Park 6 years ago. So the first step, we couldn't mandate any affordable housing because no one wanted to invest a single penny in the Manassas Park. We had to come up with our plan, and we had to go out aggressively and get it, and we got it, and people started investing here, and now we're able to actually start demanding affordable housing ratios as well as part of all future developments. But that's the strategy we're taking, but we look at everything from a numeric standpoint. But the larger issue, though, you have to use economic development intelligently, right? You need to be pro-economic development, but reinvest it in public policy goals, and including keeping tax rates low. Because if tax rates are going to keep going high because of more density, people are going to kill what you're doing. They're not going to accept that. So you have to, we try to balance everything. Cutting tax rates, increasing teacher pay, police officer pay, affordable housing. We're trying to play that mathematical game here of revenues equating to expenditures, and the only way you can do that is through economic growth. It just has to be. So you can't be anti-economic development while also trying to pursue affordable housing and other things. They have to go hand in hand, but you have to take advantage of the revenues generated from economic development. You have to have your policy goals in mind when you approve economic development, and that's what we've done here in Manassas Park over the last few years. We still have a long way to go, right? But everything we do, again, is focus on achieving the goals that we've had. So that's our policy. We're very, very excited to have a vet on staff. We're very excited to have that affordable housing strategy, that plan and that strategy developed and brought back to the governing body for consideration as we plan kind of the next phase of development as well.
Thank you so much. I don't know about all of you, but I'm very excited about some of the things that I'm hearing in the room, not to ignore like the true real challenges that we are hearing also, but understanding that there are some viable ways we're going to move forward. I know there are some questions we probably didn't get to. We're going to go just maybe a few minutes over, but I wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk about the transportation issue, because one of the things you've heard multiple times is affordable housing period should be close enough to transportation hubs or transportation areas so that our folks aren't left in isolated areas, because if they can't get to their jobs easily, they can't get to their schools easily, it becomes a problem. The other piece is, and it was hinted at, was it's not just about folks in our lower income brackets that are struggling. It's our first responders. It's our law enforcement. It's our firefighters. It's our teachers, our teaching assistants, our bus drivers. The places where they're employed are having a hard time attracting and retaining them because they can't afford to live in the area. And so you know the ripple effect of that. And so so these are the practical realities that we're working with as well, in addition to this missing middle, our middle class that seems to be shrinking. So we have that as well. So I would love to give you a few moments to kind of share some things if you would. Okay, hold on a second.
Thanks. I probably was not the right person to send. Probably our planning department and our TDM, which is Transportation Demand Management. But I just kind of want to reiterate that with like land development and our goal really is to work with the cities and with the companies and the different organizations in the area to make sure that we do have transportation where it's needed. And so I think someone mentioned, and it may have been you, Supervisor Bailey, who also is on our board, that we really are trying to listen to the community more, and we've had more events and town halls like this where we really want people to come and tell us what they need, where we need to go. Our planning department, I would say every 6 months or so, reevaluates where we're at, where we're serving our community so that we really are in the right places. So if you have questions about, yes.
So I've always been told that transit follows the need. And so you have to create that need before the transit can get there. And you were talking about what happened over at High Point, and it was just, I did not go. I sent my husband as a spy because I knew I'd be a lightning rod, but he recorded it all for me. I kept hearing this over and over again. We have no transit, we have no transit. It was not walkable. It is walkable. I live there. There was no health care. Heath Coast Hospital is less than a mile away. It's fine. But it was just that dog whistle, and they kept saying the only place we have that is Sudley. The only place we have that is Sudley. They have to be in Sudley. And that's what I was hearing that whole night, was just dog whistles. We don't want them here. And they're using that as an excuse. So I don't know how to overcome that, because we need to be able to build these communities in order for you guys to come out here. But I will say that in this county, you have a car. That's really the only way, realistic way we can get around over and over again. And I can say that because my work on the pantry, these people are all driving to the pantry. They have cars. They may not be the best cars in the world, but they do work and they are getting places. So, I mean, we have to put the cart before the horse, right? We have to build these communities in order for you to justify cutting out there. The other thing is there were 3 townhome communities built right in Haymarket, straight down all the way to Linden Hall. 3, one's a retirement community, one's right in the town of Haymarket, and the other one, each of them have like almost 100 units. Nobody cared about their traffic, not one person. It was all that affordable dwelling. We don't want that traffic.
Yeah, that's, sorry, not to interrupt you, but that's exactly it. That's why I was saying they're playing hot potato, because a lot of people are asking, if not here, then where? If not now, then when? Because there is no real commitment happening in terms of having that evidence for constituents that there are plans, or there is an allotted amount of time where these plans are going to be successfully executed. But yeah, that was exactly it.
Well, and then Sherman Patrick, who wants to build that community, gave me an update of all the LIHTC housing in our county. We have one in the Gainesville district. It's down by a bone pit. It's a lovely little, I drove past there, I didn't even know it was there. But look at this. And this is Manassas. It was redline, that's all it was. That polling thing was just, we don't want them here. And there are teachers. I mean, I can tell you a very quick story. My son was saxophone, wanted to take lessons, started in 5th grade. Mr. Anderson, who was a teacher at Gravely Elementary School, taught 2 nights a week down at our local music to my benefit, all the way through most of high school until COVID. He and his wife ended up finally being able to buy a house in Culpeper. So he was commuting to Gravely Elementary School every day from Culpeper. His wife was a nurse, she had a job down there. But they couldn't afford to live here. And he was driving, it's a good 45 minutes to an hour drive from Culpeper. And then during COVID, of course, he stayed there and he realized he's not going to do that anymore. And we lost a great teacher, and my son lost a fabulous instructor. And I mean, he had to work 2 nights a week. I mean, this is the reality we live in now. But they do have part. One of the things that this is our little pamphlet we give to all our people in the pantry. It costs $105,000, $189,000 a year for a family of four to live paycheck to paycheck. And since COVID, we have had a 94% raise in clients. And actually this month, every year has been a record-breaking year since COVID. So every year we've risen this much, every year of clients coming in. This month, we have now surpassed last year's amount of clients. So for the rest of the year, we are working above what we worked at last year.
And staff benefits got cut as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is dire out there, and these people are all working. They're not, and they're all just trying to get by here. What was it? According to Feeding America, I had the paper, but it costs about $50 a day to feed a family of four now. It was 40. Was it 49? I showed you the stat. It is somewhere. But yeah, it's okay. So an average cost of a meal is $4.09. And by the way, Feeding America is 2 years behind, so it's more now. So that's $16.36 a meal that a parent to feed a family of four. So that's $49.08 a day to feed a family of four, and that was from 2 years ago. We all know it's a heck of a lot.
I have a facetious question. How many buses do you send to farms out in like Oaksville?
We asked in our housing task force, we asked Dr. Schneider what his expansion plans were, with the sort of logical idea that maybe we should put our affordable housing where we're going to put our affordable transit. And if the transit is going to expand, and those are the places where we might consider putting new affordable housing. Because as I understand it, you're not a money-making operation. And so it requires a lot of cost to run extensions of OmniRide. So we were trying to figure out how could we get the biggest bang for the buck by putting them both together. And his answer was the only extension plan he had was University Town Center. And that was the place that maybe we ought to consider putting affordable housing as near, in innovation, near where he's gonna have transit. Is that correct? That's it?
As far as I know. So, yeah, I have heard that we are looking at the innovation area. So that would be correct.
I was going to say that we're in Haymarket, we're in the town of Haymarket, where the way that I would describe our organization in common language that people in the affordable housing space are familiar with, it's housing first. So we are carried a full term, and we provide long-term housing to a specific population that's not being discussed here because they're the hidden homeless population. They're not the missing middle. They're not seen. So there are women and children that are homeless, and the numbers in Prince William County are significantly high. So we house those individuals, and we're in Haymarket. Transportation, of course, is a huge issue, and we are in need of those services. So if we in some way could amplify the need through our program, because we are currently in existence in the space, then maybe it could be a stepping stone or catalyst for other services in the area. But at Carry the Full Term, we house up to 68 moms a year. And, you know, like you were saying for the pantry, we would used to, prior to COVID, we get about 10 calls a week. We get 10 calls a day. So we equip these individuals to take them from homelessness to independence and self-sufficiency, but we run into the national issue of housing shortage. So where do we connect the gaps for preparing the populations that we're preparing them for to become homeowners? Because by the time we're done with them, most of them come to us $0 with nothing, and they leave after 2 years with about $20,000 saved. So our program works, we just need to connect it or have it be repeated on a larger scale, because we could be a test subject for how it works. And then it could be part of the packaging or, you know, the conversation piece for affordable housing.
Can you grab me afterwards? And I want to talk to you about connecting and, yeah. Any additional questions?
Andrea Bailey wanted to.
Yeah, I just want to help my friend, support my friend from Omni.
You threw me out there. You told him I was on the board. I wasn't going to tell him that. But I want to, in support of what she's saying, there is an opportunity for us to improve, increase, and connect transportation to housing to make sure that it's happening. One of the things, on a positive note, that we're doing is on the eastern corridor, particularly in my district, and I'm not trying to center this on me, but as an example, what we're doing is we're introducing electric buses, and I can't think of the proper name for the Uber. What's the Uber?
Oh, it's the Connect.
It's the Connect. Can I? I'll shut up. Anyway, no, I'm trying to be obedient. But but it's the Connect, and it's like an Uber that OmniRide is providing. And so my district is the test pattern for that. So as we talk more about affordable housing and transportation and everything, and how do we do that, particularly for your benefit, I see Connect partnering with her in terms of that. So that's an example, but we need to increase that on a broader scale as we get funding, as Charlie is saying, to support OmniRide, federal funding and state funding. We need to increase that. And the last thing I want to say real quick is we're going through a paradigm shift. The county and the cities, y'all are doing good. I want to know more about y'all. But Manassas Park, Daryl, you never talked to me about that. But we are going through a paradigm shift. And it's a hard thing. It's change. Nobody likes change. And so I'm going to shut up, Delegate, but that's all I want to make you mindful of that as we're talking about this and the time frame that it takes to do it.
And if I can add on to one thing she said. We've tried.
Behind you.
So we are really trying to think of us more as a community service. And so we've tried to broadcast this. I don't know if it's really gotten out, but our local service is free because we want to be that service for the community. So I do want to point that out, that that's really something that we can also use.
That is fantastic. And that is a positive note to end our conversation on. We've gone about 15, 16 minutes over. Last question? All right, last question, last comment.
Thank you all for coming. First of all, for coming because I've been in Manassas Park and I know a lot of you here, and we're always working for change for everyone. But I'd like to make a recommendation when we're talking about housing and homeless and partnership. The way you verbiage your applications and the way that you have those that are working with those people that are homeless and in desperation makes a difference, because you don't know if that's going to turn to a suicidal moment, leading to further depression. So the people that you are working with, those people that are homeless and are not able to get anything, make sure that the person has compassion, because compassion can go a long way even when you don't even have food to eat. So make sure that they do that, because it makes a difference, and we don't want to see anybody jump off our fence or anything. But thank you for all coming.
Thank you for that. And, you know, people who know me and know the work I do in the outside of the political space know that I'm about compassion and accountability. And they can coexist, and it's very powerful when they coexist. You're informed, you're accountable, you're compassionate, and then that informs wise action that makes a difference in people's lives. And I definitely want to talk with you before I leave, because I think sharing some of what you're doing, particularly in our newsletter to constituents, will be very helpful in getting out the word as well. I want to thank our council members, our local officials, local leaders, organizational leaders and advocacies, but most importantly, each of you from the communities who have come here and been willing to engage in the conversation on a topic that we only scratched the surface tonight on. I recognize that. There's so much more to do and so much more to have, and we will keep these conversations going. And this was just an opening for us to begin to bring air into the conversation. My hope was also that we would get people from the county and the cities, whether you're constituents or you're working in organizations or you're working in industry or you're working in government, to listen and hear what's happening around our area, because we can learn from one another, and something that works over here may work over here too, or it may not. It might need to be tweaked, but we can co-create and generate solutions together. And I think it's really important for us to do that and keep the conversation going. As we move forward, we'll probably have more of these, but we'll focus them on a particular issue so that we can drill down. But I thought the first one was important for us to kind of take the top off and get the air out and start looking at a number of different issues. And our commitment is to continue to partner and have these conversations, drill down so we can get specific on certain parts of these issues where we think, because, I have a friend that says, there's a saying that says, what's your 1%? Like, you can't boil the ocean, but that, like, if you could just change 1% of something, that's pretty powerful. But sometimes 1% of a million still feels very daunting, so I invite people to pick one thing. What's your one thing? And if your one thing is in affordable housing, it's not enough to just say it's affordable housing. Pick one thing within it. Keep drilling down so it becomes actionable, and then you can connect to people in this room across our area to make it happen. Again, a lot of the decisions are made at this local level, but at the state level, we can help with funding. We can help with incentives. We can help connect to federal programs and resources. So it is important to have us all engaged at every single level, because that is the only way we're going to be able to move this needle, and it's together. So thank you, everybody. And if you didn't get a chance to talk tonight or share things, I'm hoping that you'll come back when we start to put some other things on the agenda to be more specific. But thank you for taking your time tonight, and thanks for staying a little later, and thanks for hosting us as well. Thank you, Christy.